He won the 220-yard dash at the state track meet for Mississippi as a freshman in high school, then eventually broke the state 100-meter record too. In college, he earned All-American during each of the 8 seasons he competed for the University of Alabama, winning the 200 meters at the NCAA Outdoor Championship his senior year. Later, he won Olympic gold in 1984 as part of the U.S. 4x100-meter relay team, then Olympic bronze in 1988 in one of the most controversial 100-meter finals of all time. But between his collegiate and Olympic careers, Calvin Smith ran the single fastest race of the entire 1980s. Today is July 3rd, 2025, and on this day in 1983, American sprinter Calvin Smith bettered the men's 100-meter record from 9.95 to 9.93 seconds. First, I'll tell y'all about the history of this distance since record keeping began in the late 19th century. Then we'll talk about Smith's record-breaking race before hearing from him directly about his experience that day. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. Sprinting is one of the OG Olympic events, and I'm not just talking about the modern Olympics that have been held nearly every 4 years since 1896. Sprinting was the original Olympic event, the only event in the first Olympic Games held in ancient Greece in 776 BC. This was called the Stadion race, and it featured athletes sprinting the length of the stadium. It was actually closer to 200 meters in length, but it was run in a completely straight line, so it's considered the precursor to today's 100 meters. Over 1,000 years later, once measurements became standardized and time clocks were ubiquitous, people started keeping official records of this event. The first recognized 100-meter record was set by American runner Luther Carey in 1891 when he ran that distance in 10.8 seconds. 5 years later, the 100 meters was part of the first modern Olympics and has remained a part of each iteration of the Games since. The IAAF, known today as World Athletics, started ratifying records in the 100 meters in 1912 when American runner Donald Lippincott lowered the record to 10.6 seconds. That record was lowered incrementally over the 50 years that followed, but it was not until the 1960s that automated electrical timers were used. Now, I cannot stress enough how wildly inaccurate those early records may or may not have been, since they were all hand-timed. It reminds me of this time back in high school. I ran track in high school, and my dad was the track coach, so my mom spent a lot of time at our meets as well. And there was one dual meet when my mom volunteered to help with timing. She ended up recording multiple 14-year-olds as breaking world records, which, suffice to say, did not actually happen. Now, the point here is that to err is human, and automatic timing changed the game when it came to accuracy. So records were finally able to fall in increments of 1/100th of a second instead of merely 1/10. American Jim Hines ran the first recorded sub-10-second 100 meters at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, which lowered the world record to 9.95 seconds. Less than 10 years later, at the beginning of 1977, the IAAF started requiring this much more accurate, fully automated electronic timing format for all sprinting events. This brings us to 1983, when 22-year-old Calvin Smith had just graduated from the University of Alabama after earning All-American status 8 times, once each for indoor and outdoor track all 4 years that he was there, and after winning the 200 meters at the NCAA championships his senior year. That summer, he headed to the National Sports Festival in Colorado Springs, which was like a mini Olympics. This was a 33-sport competition held by the U.S. Olympic Committee in the summers of non-Olympic years. So in addition to track and field events, there were also athletes competing in everything from boxing and wrestling to both ice and field hockey. And they stopped putting on this event in 1995, which is unfortunate because it sounds like a blast. It probably would have been the only way that I would have ever ended up watching a wrestling match. But I digress. Prior to 1983, the 10-second barrier had only been officially broken twice. First, by Jim Hines, who I mentioned set the current world record in 1968, and then by Cuban sprinter Silvio Leonard, who ran 9.98 seconds in 1977. There were a few other men who broke the 10-second barrier in hand-timed races, but they were not recognized since fully automated timing was now the standard. And if it had been timed by someone like my mom, those hand-timed sub 10-second races might have been more like 12 or 13 seconds. In May of 1983, American sprinter Carl Lewis officially got under that 10-second mark, but just barely missed the world record. 2 months later, when Calvin Smith arrived to compete at the Air Force Academy track in Colorado Springs, his collegiate coach John Mitchell was confident in Smith's speed. He later told Sports Illustrated that he knew the difference between a great and a truly iconic performance from Smith would be determined by how efficiently he got out of the starting blocks. The gun went off, and Calvin Smith got out of the blocks well, though none of the 8 men competing took a clear lead right away. I have watched the grainy footage of this race over and over, pausing incrementally to try to pinpoint the exact moment when Smith pulled ahead in lane 6. And he really didn't become the clear winner until more than 8 seconds into this race. By the 9-second mark, he's a full stride ahead of the next closest runner, and by the time he breaks the tape in a world record-breaking 9.93 seconds, his competitors are barely even in the camera frame. Immediately after finishing the win, Calvin can be seen smiling modestly for the camera, but not outwardly celebrating in the manner you might expect. I, for one, am dying to hear what he was thinking and feeling at that moment. So, without further ado, I am honored to welcome Calvin Smith to Today in Running History. All right, Calvin, thank you so much for joining me this evening. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's return to Colorado Springs, Colorado on July 3rd, 1983. What are your strongest memories of that day leading up to the race?
Well, I guess the strongest memories leading up to that particular race was that I had had a long season and I had taken some time off to rest my legs because of the long season for college
Yeah,
and
because
all the relays and stuff of that nature that I was tired. And I said, well, and then I ran a few meets in Europe and I said, well, just let me rest for a
yeah.
while. And it was not a meet that I was going to go to. And I said, okay, I've gotten the rest. Let me just go and get tuned up a little bit to make sure I'm ready for the meets during the summer.
Wow, that's so funny that was supposed to be just a tune-up meet. And now this was directly after you had just finished your fourth season at Alabama, correct? This was right after
Correct.
graduating? Okay, great.
Yes, after my 4 years at Alabama, and then we had just had the USA National, which I had placed that I didn't make the open area for the 100 meters,
And that
but
was when you the 200 was what you had made it in, correct?
uh, well, yes. Well, it was that they would take the top two from the areas. And I was not one of the ones that was going to go to me. I wasn't going to go, and somebody else decided not to go, so I decided to go to the meet.
Oh, wow. Wow. And you
Yes.
also did indoor track too. So it was definitely a long
Yep.
season.
Yes, I did indoor as well. Yes, very long and busy year it has been.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, let's talk about the race itself. What were you feeling on the starting line?
Well, going to the starting line was just trying to think about getting out of the blocks because the blocks were one of the areas that was not my strong suit. I never knew what I was going to get, a good start, okay start, or somewhat of a great start. And that's what I was trying to concentrate on and just wanted to try to relax and come out of the blocks real good.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine as a long distance runner how just how quickly all of that goes and how just microseconds matter. Do you have memories of the race itself? Because 9.93 seconds, that is so fast. Like I don't even know if my mind could form memories in a race that quick. Do you have memories of actually running it?
Well, as I, recall from the races, that it was more of, for some reason, I was very relaxed, and it was more of a effortless race compared to a lot of races that I had ran that I had put more energy into, and the time was slower. But it's just that I went in very relaxed and just wanted to have a good race, and everything just fell together.
That's great. And so obviously you broke the tape. You knew that you won the race. Were you immediately aware that you had broken the world record?
Just a little bit after that, when other runners met, and you know what they're talking about, and that's when it hit me, and the great feeling came. Okay, it could be a world record, and just unbelievable that I had run that fast.
That's pretty incredible. And did you watch the 1968 Olympics? I mean, obviously you were a child at the time, but did you watch on TV? Did you see the world record be broken, the one that you ended up breaking yourself?
Well, actually, I had not seen it
No.
at that time. No.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how much of the Olympics, people watched on TV in the 60s. So I wasn't sure if that was something that you had watched, you grew up and you were aware of the of that record. But that's great. And then about 15 minutes after you broke the men's world record, Evelyn Ashford broke the women's world record. Were you aware that that was going on at the time?
Yes. Yeah, because I generally always watch, the other events and stuff, especially the sprint events. And so, I was watching and saw, how fast, she had ran and stuff of that nature. And, as the time flash up and the crowd go with the great yells and stuff, that I knew something was good happening at that time.
That's very cool. Did you talk to her at all at those games or later on?
Yes, Evelyn, a very great athlete, very friendly athlete, and I've had, throughout the years, many conversations with her. So it was no problem talking to her about, the race and congratulating her on her superb run that day.
That's so exciting. Now, you had a very successful collegiate career leading up to this. So you were not an unknown athlete by any means, but did breaking this world record, did that change what life was like for you on a day-to-day basis, or what was the effect of that?
Um, it didn't change life day to day basis. I still went on as before. It just had given me the notoriety and more
Yeah,
people knew me, but it didn't change me. I just was Calvin, and I just continued to be Calvin, and did the same things that I had done before.
that's great. And your season did not end there. So this really, really long season with indoor track and then outdoor track and then immediately into summer breaking this world record and then it kept going because it was only a month later that you became the first person ever to run a sub 10-second 100 meters and a sub 20-second 200 meters. What was that like?
Um, that was an incredible day, to say. But I just was, focused on trying to just, run a good race and just do my best. And Zurich, Switzerland is I consider throughout my career, one of the greatest places to run because the fans are close to the track. They're very loud and they're very supportive. they were very knowledgeable about track. So it was a great place to run, and the competition there was always good. So I went there, all geared up, ready to go, and pumped up, and just with the crowd and everything else, and the great athletes that I was running against, just went out to run the best that I could that day.
That's incredible. Just thinking about how few people had ever run a 10-second 100-meter at the time, and then you do it twice within 2 months, and then you also run a sub 20-second 200 meters. That just blows my mind. I'm a terrible sprinter, so so there's that in the first place. I think my 100 meters would be probably slower than your than the 300 meters altogether, how long it took you. But that is just mind blowing to me. But that's pretty amazing. Now, you went on the next year to win Olympic gold in the 1984 Olympics, and then later on in the 88 Olympics, you won Olympic bronze. How did the two experiences in 1983, the world record in the 100 meters, and then the double, the 100 and the 200, a month later, how did that experience compare to the your experiences at the Olympics?
Um, all of them was great. I feel that as for its comparison, but of course the world record, I would stand out the top one because very few get to set a world record.
True.
Um, and the Olympics um, is what most track athletes, probably all track athletes, gear and dream of is going to the Olympics and to win a medal. So that was very exciting. And that Olympics, was one of those Olympics that was an up and down type because of the situation in the 100
Yeah.
meters,
Yeah.
those
Tell us
on
about
drugs,
that.
those on drugs and stuff. It was
Yeah.
a heartbreak at first, but I knew at the time that there were athletes that were on drugs, and knew before I went, to the games and throughout, the years. So I was not surprised that, Ben Johnson was suspended for
Yeah.
drugs. I was disappointed that um, they decided that Carl Lewis and Olympic Christie, despite the fact that they tested positive for drugs there, that they did not suspend them or
Yeah.
take the medal from them
Yeah.
because of, I feel it was just basically because of the bad publicity that they got from Ben Johnson with the media and the fans and everything, that they just shoved that under the rug to make the Olympics look better and not
Yeah.
like it was infested with drug athletes. I don't think that they were the only athletes there on drugs. There were many
Sure.
athletes that were there at the Olympics on drugs.
Yeah. It's disappointing. One of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you in the first place, why I was so excited to talk to you, is that read about. I wasn't born until 1992, so I did not watch the Olympics at that point. But looking back at that and reading about the legacies of so many of the runners at the time, you are one of the only in that field who has been just pristine the entire time. No allegations, nothing. And it's just such an admirable, stance to have. Not even not to be so clean that there weren't even allegations. That's pretty fantastic. That's not even a question. That's just that's just kind of a
Yeah.
statement I have. I think it's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. I mean,
Um,
drugs was not in the menu for me, so I
yeah.
just wanted to go out and just. But main thing was have fun, and track had given me the opportunity to travel around the world, make money, and do stuff of that nature. So I was just, happy to do that.
That's great. Do you keep in contact with any of the men that you won the relay gold?
No, I don't.
No?
Um,
Okay.
most of the athletes are in, they're in different states and stuff,
Sure.
and we really doesn't keep in contact with each other.
Okay. Your son followed in your footsteps as well. So he became a pretty successful sprinter. What was that experience like watching him?
It was very exciting. I coached him during his high school, some of his high school days. I, coached him and geared him towards the 400, which he wanted to be in the 100 and 200. But um, his senior year, I said, well, you're not as fast as you need to be to get the scholarships in the 1 and the 2. Let's move up to the 4. He moved up to the 4, and with his speed and his work ethics and hard work and stuff, that enabled him to be a great 400-meter runner. So I was very proud of him, what he was able to achieve and do in track.
That's very cool. I think he and I were in college around the same time. Does he still run today?
No, he retired a number of years ago.
Okay. And for you, what does your relationship look like with running today? I know you coached for a little bit at your alma mater, Alabama, but now what's that look like?
Well, yes, I coached at Alabama a couple of years, and then I did a number of years of coaching at different high schools in the Tampa Bay area. And that was pretty much it. I'm no longer coaching on anything of that nature. I just taking it easy, enjoying life, and just working every day. And working out, I still jog and stay in shape and stuff.
Okay,
So I
great.
just
Do you do any local races or anything like that?
No, my days of racing is over. It's just for enjoyment. I look at it if I wake up one day and say, "Oh, I don't want to jog or do anything." Oh well, I don't have to. I have
Yeah.
nothing, no meat or anything like that to worry about.
That's a great way to see it. It should never feel like a chore, and it's great that after all these years that it is still something that you're able to get up and go out and enjoy.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, those are all the questions that I have for you tonight. I really, really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you, Calvin. And thank you again for joining the podcast.
Well, good talking to you, and thank you. And I wish you all the best with your podcast and everything. And take good care of yourself.
Thanks. Wow. What a cool conversation. As I mentioned during our interview, I have so much respect for Calvin Smith, not just for his accomplishments on the track, but for his integrity. In a decade of such rampant doping within sports as the 1980s, Smith was never so much as accused of drug use, let alone tested positive. That controversial 1988 Olympic 100-meter final that Calvin mentioned deserves its own episode, so I hope you will join me for that on September 24th. And in the meantime, tune in tomorrow as I head back to the 19th century to talk about one of the greatest First Nations runners of all time and to hear from the great great grandson, literally, running in his footsteps. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. All right, and this is where we'll put the interview in. Hey, Calvin. Hey, blah, blah, blah. All right, interview. It's all there. Cool.